Hello, I'm Dr. Lonima. I am a doctor by profession and a pediatrician to be specific. So, doctor actually comes from the Latin word doco, which means to teach basically. Uh, but today I'm not here to teach you pure academics, nor am I trying to be too preachy. So, I'll just try to touch upon a few aspects of human life which are either considered inconsequential or taboo. Today, I would like to throw open a discussion actually to all concerned, that is, the kids in particular, the parents or the guardians, and the teachers. Um, the there are two specific reasons for making this video. So number one is, in our clinical practice we hardly get any time to speak in depth about mental health. We have hardly any time to spend that much of time on it. So all we can probably do is a pep talk. And the second is, we all are quite shaken to the core with the recent tragic incidences of suicides owing to depression or whatever cause of young talented people. And I have been just pondering why this is happening, and why in our youth, in spite of facing adversities of many kinds, have never ever thought of ending our lives. That wasn't an option, that wasn't a viable option even in the subconscious mind. So I feel that brings us into the realm of psychiatry. I am not a psychiatrist, but I guess as a pediatrician I can offer some insight or guidance into how we can probably go about it. When we talk of mental health issues in children, a multitude of issues come to our minds as a clinician, ranging from mild to moderate to severe. So if I talk of mild cases, there could be speech disorders like stammering or stuttering, as we call it. There could be dysphonia. There could be dyslexia, the case of Tade Zameen Pe. There could be issues with dyscalculia, which is difficulty with arithmetics. Then we could be dealing with habit disorders, which are like thumb sucking, nail biting, nose picking. So all these would come as mild disorders. We have some tic disorders. We have things like Tourette's syndrome, like the Rani Mukherjee movie that you all probably know of. She was a very good teacher and went on to become the principal of the school or something of that sort. The story goes that way. And then from there to severe cases of autism of various grades. I wouldn't go into the details of that. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, ADHD in short, and mental retardation is at the extreme end. So when we talk of mental health issues, all this falls into the realm of child psychiatry, as I told you. Now, depression that I was talking of is another mood disorder that would come as a health issue. Now, depression, we don't have very specific data on that, but it approximately accounts for about 4.4% of the entire world population. So that is a huge disease burden. And if we were to look into the percentage that afflicts children, so that would account for about 1.2% to about 21%, which is huge. And the incidence is more in females than in males. And I think the major cases of depression or the severe cases of depression would account for 8% of that. So and depression is really quite challenging to pick up in children. The reason being, the children don't even know that they are having their blues. In adults, if we are depressed, we know that we are depressed. If the reason for our being depressed, if the stimuli lies in the family, we can reach out to close friends, the inner circle of friends, to vent out our feelings and probably get out of it. And if that doesn't work out, or if we don't have that inner circle of friends, we can always seek professional help. The children are absolutely at our mercy to get any sort of help. So communication here becomes a very important tool to reach out to them and to see that they are in a stable state of mind. When I talk of depression, clinical depression, it usually the duration of the depressed mood has to last for around 2 weeks. So another important aspect of depression that we have to deal with caution is the suicide rate. So suicides associated with depression is usually more in the males, especially those who are very isolated, that is in later life usually. And the adolescents as well are equally prone. Another important factor that we need to keep in mind is that it is not during severe depression that a person commits suicide. So it is only during the phases of recovery, usually within the first 3 months, that when the person is mentally stable, that he would attempt for a suicide, or else it is the mild cases of depression. And hence it is so very important to catch depression and other mental health issues at an early stage. So now for my young friends, my little friends, I would like to give some snippets of my own childhood to understand the phenomena of mental health better. So probably when I was a kindergarten child, I'd asked my mother a very pertinent question about our reverend principal, who was a very handsome person with impeccable personality actually. So I asked her whether he peed or not, and my mother was just pissed off with me for having asked such a silly question. And I got a earful from my dad as well. And in the commotion, I absolutely forgot whether I got an answer to my query, because in my view, such an impeccable personality would probably not do the mundane activities. But that was a query in the mind of a kindergarten child. So that was a query, a genuine query. And I finally don't remember how I figured out eventually that all handsome men and beautiful women do their mundane activities as usual. And but the incident did leave I would say a small scar on my mindset probably. in the same way, I think all of you have heard the story of the small elephant who is chained, and he tries multiple times to break the shackles, and eventually he fails to do so. And by the time he grows up into a mighty elephant, he fails to realize that he can break the shackles off and he can just walk away. So he just keeps it in his mind that he can't break the shackles anymore. So that is what happens to many kids when they are stopped from questioning at a very tender age. So I guess we have to be answerable to all their weird questions which may come to their minds. We must address them. Another topic that I would like to bring upon today is how our sex education is greatly undermined. How we got to get our sex education class when we were supposed to be gentlemen and women with fountain pens in our pockets, and we had a very great teacher, Mrs. Raghuvarman. She hailed from Tamil Nadu, I guess, and she was a teacher par excellence. She used to teach us math and science, and she was the lady who took our sex education class. And the class on that day, if I remember correctly, was in a state of chaos. So we and I would specifically say the guys of our class weren't gentlemanly anymore on that day, specific day. And our ma'am, who is usually very composed, then decided that she would take the class separately, boys and girls. And I personally was very happy because I did want to hear her out. And she was a very good teacher for whom I just have immense love and respect. That's all. In fact, I have great love and respect for all my school teachers for whom I am ever grateful for wherever I am today. So during that single sex education class in our schools, we did learn about the anatomy of the male and the female body, and probably a little about how a baby is conceived. And at the end of the session, one of my classmates managed to ask Mrs. Raghuvarman, because that again was a pertinent question in her mind at that point in time. And I completely agreed to what she had asked. So she asked, ma'am, how is a pregnant woman, how does she actually sit and pee and poo? So everyone is bothered about peeing and pooing, and I felt that day that I wasn't the only one who had an inquisitiveness in my mind about peeing and pooing and how we actually came to this world. Matter of fact was actually that nobody, neither our parents nor our teachers nor any other reliable people came forward to share the complexities of a man-woman relationship, how we are supposed to navigate through these friendships or love relationships, how to deal with failed relationships. So we were never given an insight onto that. We also have an a problem or in ladies after birth, which we term as postpartum blues, in which a woman goes into depression after the birth of a child. So that happens because she has not been primed initially in her formative years about how things actually work in the real world. We haven't taken a pragmatic approach towards dealing with adult life. Now I shall give you another example just to drive home the point that suicides are not very uncommon in our society as well. When I was a 7th standard child, we had a teacher who was a very good teacher, per excellence, I would say. One of her kids was settled in the US. We had met her, and she was something that we were probably all looking forward to emulate. And she also had a younger son who had probably appeared during his HS examinations that year, and was awaiting his result, but somehow his results were not up to the expectations on that particular day, and he wasn't mentally prepared to face his mother, who was a disciplinarian and had high expectations of him. So he just couldn't gather the courage to tell her that I want to appear the exams yet another time and then go for the entrance or something of that sort. And instead of facing her, he preferred to go the suicide way. And you can't imagine, even probably I can't imagine, what a tragedy that must have been to my beloved teacher. She disappeared from our lives for maybe a period of 6 months or so, and then after 6 months she was back again with us, and she saw us through our matriculation to see us coming out with flying colors. And in that time she confessed to us that she had to take professional help. She was under psychiatric medications to overcome her tragedy, which was by no means a small issue. And it takes a lot of courage to come out in the open and to speak out about the flaws in yourself. So when somebody seeks professional help, that isn't cowardice, that is strength. This particular tragic incident changed my parents' perspective in a significant way, and I guess all the parents were actually greatly affected by the tragedy. And I'm proud to say that I was never ever after that forced to perform. It was just out of my own will that I did whatever I did. So that was a great change in people's perspectives, I guess. And my father continued to be a great mental support during my entire strenuous academic career. Another news that has disturbed me profoundly in the recent times, and that has actually left all the netizens across the country shocked, is that a few adolescent boys were planning a gang rape of one of their classmates. And this brings to the fore the essence of making them understand the concept of mutual respect for each other amongst both the genders. So without this mutual respect for each other, the very foundation of society is going to disintegrate. And if we head in a similar fashion, the day isn't far away. So we have to make some things very clear. At the very outset, we should know that a no, N-O, means a no, irrespective of the gender. and we should respect it with utmost diligence. Another issue that I would like to touch upon today is the aspect of nepotism, the existence of it in our world, the way it rules the roost in our society. We are crying foul these days about the existence of nepotism in the glamour industry after the death of a famous actor, Bollywood actor. As though it were just a flaw out there in those far-flung areas and isn't there in our very backyards. But it's very much ingrained in the very fabric of the society, I would say. Right from our childhood, we are judged based on our physical attributes, our academic pursuits, our social and economic standing, or which religion we belong to, which race, which caste, which creed, and the mannerisms, and the list just goes on and on. Society at large gives positive reinforcement to such apparently harmless banter, but it isn't harmless all the time. A few sensitive individuals are greatly traumatized by such behavior, and maybe as a society it's time for us to reintrospect as to where we are going wrong. Most of the parameters that I spoke of, like height, weight, and few physical attributes, color and stuff. So these have a genetic background, and unfortunately none of us can choose who our parents shall be or who our parents are. So that is one thing. Then the other thing is that there could be medical causes for such disparities in different parameters. So I guess it is very inconsiderate for any individual to make such harmless banter, I guess. So now, what is the answer to nepotism? How do we counter this? What can we do on an individual level to counter it? I think resilience is the key. And so we have to try to build resilience in our kids so that they are able to face the future. It's generally seen that kids who see adversities in their earlier formative years are usually more resilient. But there are exceptions to every rule, of course, so can't really generalize. But few things that we can do is probably we need not appease our small kids for every small issue, for every small thing that they want. We may just let them cry and let their tiny hearts break a little so that they are prepared for the greater adversities of life that shall be there in future, because life of course is not a bed of roses without thorns. So they may as well learn how to deal with the thorns right from childhood. That is one issue. That is one factor that we can keep in mind. The other thing that we could do is probably avoid fake appreciation of our kids, in the sense that if the kids are mediocre, we need not put them on a pedestal and just ask them to hone their skills. Fake appreciation is the greatest disservice that we could do to the ones that we actually love, because once the going gets tougher, so they would probably get to a point when they might just actually feel worthless, and we don't want our loved ones to be at that spot. So honesty might be the best policy after all in such circumstances. So our final message to our kids out there. Don't ever lose hope and keep fighting for your dreams. Keep dreaming. A few dreams shall shatter. Doesn't matter. Take care.